So there's a new story out right now that Amy Klobuchar could not name the Mexican president in an interview, and this was an interview with Telemundo, which is one where you definitely want to know the name of the president of Mexico. Apparently, Tom Steyer also had this issue, um, but man, there's a video clip of it. We're gonna watch it together. It's brutal, man. Oh my gosh. It's very, very cringe. So let me pull this up and we're going to watch Amy fumble for 2 minutes trying to remember the name of the president of Mexico. Here we go.
What do you know about the Mexican president?
Okay, well, what I will tell you is that I will visit Mexico in the first 100 years. 100 days.
100 days.
I will
You
visit,
100 years, huh?
are
Yes.
running for president.
Yes.
You would like to be the
Yes. Yes.
Democratic candidate.
Yes.
What do you know about the Mexican president now?
Well, I know that he is elected in the last few years. I don't know him personally. I've met with the ambassador, and I was actually supportive of the trade agreement. So I worked with the embassy on that. They came to
Do
meet
you
with
know,
me.
and I ask because it's so important, especially Nevada, California, Arizona, Texas. This
Yes.
is our neighbor to the south.
Yes.
Do you know anything about him? Specifically his politics, what he's doing, since this would be the country you would share a border with? Anything
well,
you can tell me about him?
I know that they are neighbors, and regardless of who the leader is, that it is someone that I will work with.
Do you?
Right
I'm
here,
sorry
she's
to ask,
like,
but
"Oh,
do you
shit."
know who he is? Do you know his name?
Yeah. I know that he is the Mexican president.
But can you tell me his name?
No.
Don't you think it would be?
You notice that he goes, "Do you know who he is? Do you know who he is?" She goes, "Yes, yes." And then she looks off stage probably at her staffers sitting there, and she's like, "I know that he's the Mexican president." And he's like, "Yeah, but do you know his name?" And she's just like, "No." And from this point on, we'll finish watching because this is just so much cringe. But she is like, just looks so defeated. I almost feel bad for her, but I don't because she should know this shit. And props to this journalist for going after it.
If you're running for president, to know who the president of Mexico, the country to the south of the United States, is,
Yes.
because it affects so many Americans. Mexican Americans are the largest Hispanic. The largest number of Hispanics in the U.S. are Mexican Americans.
Of course it is, yes.
Is there anything specifically you
Oh,
can tell me that you
man.
do know about Andrés Manuel López Obrador or what he's doing in Mexico that has a direct effect
Oh,
on all of our border
This is
communities?
brutal.
Well, what I do know is that we have had issues, of course, with asylum and people coming up. I actually visited Mexico under the previous president.
Yes.
And went there and led a delegation there to work on human trafficking. And I met with the Attorney General at the time, and we had a very positive meeting. So I didn't meet with the President, I met with the Attorney General.
Okay.
And then I also, if I could finish, and I also have been very supportive of the USMCA trade agreement. I've also been very supportive of trying to work on the asylum cases and the like. So.
Cool. Whoo, man, that was so much cringe, so brutal to watch. First of all, good on this reporter for really going after and really pushing Amy on this topic. You know, most news reporters, they would just challenge you maybe once at most in the candidate. I mean, you saw at the beginning, I mean, they're quite good at sidestepping. And so Amy, you know, she said, "Oh, well, what I do know is, you know, I met the ambassador and I went there with a delegation and I'll work with them." And she would say all these, you know, things that sounded pretty good, but he kept coming back to like, "Okay, but do you know the president? And do you know anything about his policies?" And he got her to admit that she did not know the president, which think about how mind-blowing that is. The United States borders two countries. Two. Canada and Mexico, and that's it. And of course, everyone knows Trudeau in Canada, but why wouldn't you, as a presidential candidate, know the president of the country to your south? The fact that she did not know his name is so indicative of the way that our foreign policy establishment and our political figures treat or think about our neighbor to the south, which is very, very poorly or not at all. And so, you know, this is the candidate that the media has been foisting upon us and pushing so hard, telling us that she's a great moderate. And I mean, you can see a lot of the pundits have thrown in with her. Bill Maher has thrown in with her and said, hey, I like Amy. And, there's a lot of people with sway pushing voters to consolidate around Amy, especially after her surprisingly decent finish in New Hampshire. And, the question is why? There's nothing noteworthy about Amy Klobuchar. There's nothing that makes her stand out. And I think this is just one other example. And, you might say, well, look, it's a little brain fart. She just forgot, you're reading into it too much. But I mean, clearly you could see in the way she answered it, it wasn't like, oh crap, like, oh, it was on the tip of my tongue and I forgot. Like normally I know this guy. No, she was just like, no, I don't know. Like it's like it had never crossed her mind, essentially. That's the impression that I got watching this. And, it's so cringe, man. Again, this is Telemundo. This is speaking directly to the Latin American voters, Hispanic voters that are in Nevada and some of the other early states here going into Super Tuesday. And she's going to have a tough time winning those voters over with this kind of conversation. And one last thing I'll say here, which is just kind of funny, is one of her press aide or whoever's job it was to prep her for this interview is going to get a stapler thrown at them very, very hard. I say that jokingly because we should never make fun of, workplace abuse, but that is what Amy is known for, is being a very abusive boss, and we shouldn't forget that either, as much as the pundit class would like us to do so. So thank you for watching this, guys. It will be very interesting to see how Amy performs with Hispanic voters come Nevada. We'll be following that very closely, but I think that she is going to have a hard time here just based on this, this interview alone. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.